Dad, what's going on with you?
I just need to do something.
Well, what's happened to you?
Ah, I got bit by these tiny ants all over my balls and my gland.
Daddy. Oh no.
So itchy.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to put them in yogurt?
I've heard that mouths help.
At this point, we had been in Costa Rica this was right when we got here. And when I look back at this, it's like, oh my God, it was like instantly at home. There were so many things that were like always stressful. For example, driving with the kids.
They hated seatbelts or car seats. They hated car seats. I hated seatbelts.
Yeah, but also the kids would be like squawking in the car, we'd be like, okay, like let's put a show on for them or something. But it's amazing how in a really noisy vehicle, like an ATV that's bumping around all over the place.
You just don't squawk.
If they're squawking, you can't hear them, so. But they love it. They absolutely love it. Turns out, like, our family vehicle, something we'd, like, when we started shooting Erotic Wealth, we're like, we want a G-Wagon. And I'm like, oh, that's so lame. This has been so fun for us.
But yeah, I wore a shirt the first day.
Shoes the first day, maybe.
Yeah, my little sandals. And then saw people shoeless, shirtless, and said, this is my style.
Well, we're so used to being like the freaks out there.
Yeah. Wow. She's a big jumper. No way. You just lost a tooth? I got a recording. Holy shit, that's amazing. Congratulations, my boy.
People being like, wait, why do you have your shirt off? Or like, why are you dressed like this? Or, like,
pulled up to a 5-star hotel in my shorts with no shoes.
Yeah.
In Little Rock, Arkansas.
That feels like so long ago. I remember when we walked into that hotel, I was like, let's tell them we're travel vloggers and get a big deal. And there was like nothing. Oh my God, so much has changed between that trip and this trip. Because that trip, that trip was so stressful. When we first started out on the road.
Yeah, that was after a drive from Galveston that day. We did a big drive that day.
Back then when we were traveling, we were just like hyper fixated on like, we've got to buy a house. And so everywhere that we moved to, we're like, is this our home? Are you my mommy?
Was her town.
Yeah.
And when the town thought it was cool for like 30 minutes.
Yeah. And this
maybe less.
This was right after pandemic too, and so.
Or not even after. It was after like the first wave.
Yeah, it was 2021.
Yeah.
People were still like really freaked out, but we were leaving New Mexico, and at the time we were like, we just want to be somewhere where it's not super strict, where people are like-minded, and it was. We were coming out of some real like us versus them thinking, and being on the road for that long taught us so much about like, instead of trying to make other people more like us, becoming more adaptable as people and more accepting of people with different beliefs, which was like pretty different from the mindset we were in. And I think everybody fell into this during COVID, where it's just like, who's keeping us on lockdown? we all want to get out of this. Who's to blame for us being on
Just
lockdown?
picking sides.
Yeah.
Just picking sides.
That was very much the era. But during that time, it was super necessary. But we were just everywhere that we went, we're like, is this our home? Is this our home? And so we had gone from New Mexico to Texas. And we were in Texas for like how many months?
About 3.
We were in Texas for about 3 months, trying to, see if a house would fall into our lap. We hadn't even sold our home yet. And it just wasn't happening. So we went on our first road trip heading out towards...
We wanted to go to New Orleans, but a hurricane was coming to New Orleans.
Yeah.
So we went to Galveston. And we didn't know where we were going towards. We thought maybe upstate New York, but that was still like, I don't know if we should.
And this like no destination road tripping with like all of our stuff, not our trailer luckily, but like a lot of stuff. We didn't know how to pack light back then. We had for like every 2-week trip, we had like so much shit. Fucking so much shit. It was crazy.
And making a mess everywhere we went.
Yeah, it was horrible. And because we were just trying to make a home out of everywhere, we weren't in like a passing through mindset.
Buying groceries.
So many groceries, and then like not wanting to get rid of groceries, so like bring them with us to the next spot. The whole thing was really stressful, and we were trying to buy a house, so the whole time I was trying to work, and I really don't work well in conditions like that, like being responsible for all of the food, keeping the kids placated on the road. The kids want mommy before we get in the truck, all during the truck, when we get out of the truck, and then there's like dinner to put on the table. It was fucking horrible, and I don't want to do that again. And even when I look at like the footage over these weeks, I'm like, oh man, like just so much cooking, like not really being able to get out of those routines. Like it's like, okay, let's immediately stock up on groceries. There's so many restaurants around us, but
yeah, we really lucked out like that.
Yeah, but we get into a routine, and all the food is good and stuff, don't get me wrong, but learning how to eat in a different way has actually been kind of challenging for us at the beginning, because so much of our routine was like food stuff.
Well, I feel like we just need to have a lot more fruit on hand. Like we started like that, and then sort of tapered off a little bit.
Well, it's just learning how to eat in a different way. Like here, there's not a lot of meat in the restaurants. It's all like a lot of raw veggies and stuff like that. And that's actually what's super suited to the climate. Like if you eat kind of heavier foods, it feels pretty weird. And I feel like I've gained, not gained a lot of weight, but just the postpartum weight wasn't really easy to shake off, because I think I was bored and also just at home all the time, cooking food all the time, eating the same food like every single day.
I saw an old video recently, and you were like, here's your breakfast, and it was so nice of you to make me breakfast, but it was just a mound of Applegate sausages.
Yeah, well, you could avoid eating Applegate sausages if you made breakfast in the morning.
Yeah, well, that's why I started saying it was so nice of you to make me breakfast.
When I'm cooking the same thing every day, it's not because I'm happy. It's because I'm miserable.
Routine rut.
Yeah.
Feed, now you feed, now you play.
Just like constantly offering the kids food, like not waiting to respond. It was pretty stressful. But I think that there was just so much, like food was playing like such a large part in every single day. And when I'm excited, I'm not really hungry, but when I'm bored, like all I want to do is snack and eat. So like some of the things that were the biggest kind of pains in the ass for us back home was like dealing with behavior stuff with the kids, you know, them wanting to eat fucking dessert first thing in the morning. For me, like some stubborn weight that wouldn't budge, not really having clarity of what to do next in the business because everything was like, well, what is going to create the results that'll help us buy a house? There was a lot of stress around like getting the kids to eat their food properly, and then the idea of traveling with the kids was stressful because they didn't like long trips, but or eating in restaurants. And so much of that just changed the second that we got here. Like these things that were huge issues.
Oh, we've just been uptight bitches.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how all these problems dissolved when we got here. Like, the kids have been amazing in restaurants, and we go out to eat like almost every day, which has really helped with like how stagnant I was feeling around cooking. And
everything's also just a lot more wild around here.
Yeah.
It's calm chaos. It's like chaotic, but everything just flows in the chaos very smoothly.
It's like the chaos provides just enough background noise to be really exciting, to make everything really exciting.
And people don't, locals, people from here, don't meddle in your business. The only time I've seen little looks and stuff from people, it's tourist people that are used to being all prim and proper and shit.
No one's expecting you to be tame in the jungle. Like, I feel like people don't have crazy expectations of their kids here, of their dogs here. It's just, we're so used to being like kind of the odd people out, and being in a place where like everything we do is considered really natural and normal is just super, it's just refreshing. It's super refreshing. It feels like I seriously never want to go back to not being able to wear my tropical witch outfits again. I love just living in a bathing suit. And even like here in Costa Rica, we just let the kids like kind of run around naked at the beach, and all of the locals, like local kids, are usually just at the beach in like all of their clothes. Like they're wearing like all of their clothes on the beach, like their shirts and their shorts and their shoes, and then they just like walk into the water with all of their shirts and stuff on, like, so. But I don't give them weird, I'm just like, okay, you know, that's your thing. But they don't give like our kids weird looks for running around naked. You know, it's just like everyone kind of just does their own thing. But when we first got here, like, I was just immediately falling into the same routine that I knew of like everywhere we went, which was like go to the grocery store, start making food, start to work out a routine, find the routine, get to work. And I'm happy that I got sick of that, pretty like literally physically sick of it, because it's been a long time of me being like food mom. It's been a long time of me cooking all of the meals, and I've been over it for so long. And
that's exactly what you didn't want on a vacation.
Yeah.
And that's, in looking for a place to go to, I was like, you know, we wanted to be somewhat remote, but not like completely out there, and not like surrounded by high rises and shit. So it was just looking for options in an environment that I felt like we would like just from, you know, the internet. But you never know what you're gonna get, really.
Yeah. And something interesting, why don't you tell them how you found this location?
Well, I love cold brew coffee, and I completely judge places based on the fact if they have cold brew coffee. Like, when we're traveling around the States, I'd find Airbnbs near coffee shops that I like, and I usually vibed with those areas more, and so that's how I found where we are now.
Yeah, basically just looked up a coffee shop, and it's so crazy because for so long we've been living in like such an inconvenient way, which is really far from the dentist, really far from tattoo shops, really far from just about everything.
Because that things don't really flow to us.
Yeah, but also like because we really like our space. We like being left the fuck alone. And any time we've ever lived in close proximity to things, like when we lived in Austin or even Wilmington, we just felt like everywhere we turned, people were up in our shit. And we have neighbors on all sides of us here, but it feels like it just feels like everybody's minding their own business, and we're foreigners here, although everybody thinks that we live here from the beginning.
Yeah.
Even before we were so tan. These lobsters are kind of a funny story.
Well, I wanted to find a fish market, and I did.
Yeah, and the fish market is amazing. You can get like a kilo of tuna caught just that morning, like a kilo, that's a huge piece, for friggin' $6.
But we wanted lobster. You'd been saying lobster, one lobster, and so every time I was going there I was asking for lobster,
because we'd see all the shells and everything washed up on the beach.
And then I went for a walk on the beach, sort of run, and when I was coming back, there was this man, and he had his mask and fins and a big old basket full of lobster, and I was just like, whoa.
What?
Spoke my 4 words of Spanish to him.
What were your
Muy
4 words?
bonito.
You cutie.
Wow.
Muy bonito, you cutie. Oh my.
And gathered that he just dove for them in the ocean right there. Just popped out of the water like that, and with his shirt and shorts on. This 70-year-old man that I now know is 70. But he said he was gonna be at the Pescaderia mañana at 4. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna be there, and sure enough, I got a couple lobsters for him, and in the excitement of the lobsters, I wanted more.
Yeah, we're like addicted to stocking up on things.
So my next order was for 6.
Before we had even tried them.
Yeah, I jumped it up to 6 from 2. And that was gonna be the next day. But I don't really know how to cook lobster.
Well, we do, but these are not.
I think there's probably a different way to cook the Pacific lobster.
It's the taste of the lobster. Yeah. These are not Maine lobsters. These are Caribbean lobsters, and they taste really different in a weird way. I'm a seafood hag. I could eat just about any kind of seafood and be happy about it. But these lobsters, I was definitely not into. And the next day made a commitment to get 6 of them,
6. And then I didn't have enough money for him because it was by weight.
They were even bigger lobsters.
Bigger. So he said I could give him the rest of the money the next day. So my 3rd day seeing this man, now I feel like him and I are best friends.
And what's his name?
Tortilla.
Man, I tried to cook these lobsters every single way. We started off with steamed lobster, and then I was like, okay, that's pretty weird. Let's maybe try grilling them. And here all the grills are charcoal, which we're brand new to. So we grilled them, and then they were still weird, and then they made spaghetti out of them, and it's still weird. And eventually we're just all right, that's a wrap for lobster. We're good.
Look up some recipes. We'll see. I'm not giving up on tortilla.
You don't need to give up on tortilla, but I'm going to give up on lobster.
Yeah.
So what do you think has been the biggest thing that you've learned in those 2 weeks, those first 2 weeks that we were here?
I've learned that there's so many made-up problems that we give ourselves in the States. Made-up problems and just little tasks.
Busy work.
Busy work.
Yo, and now, like, I just gotta put my fucking tinfoil hat on a little bit because loyal to the foil, baby. But I was like thinking about propaganda when we were hanging out today, and I was like, all of America is convinced that they're like mentally ill in some way, that they're either like autistic or bipolar or neurodivergent or ADHD, but nobody is like secure, and everybody's questioning if they're sane or not in the US. Like, it's very hard to have a strong country when everyone thinks that they might be crazy or that they might be under too much stress and they need to take a mental health day. Like, there's not one person that I've come across here that seems, even if I said, oh, have you had a wellness day lately? Or what's your self-care look like? Like, I feel like people would look at me like I had fucking tusks. Like, none of this mental health battle exists outside of, and is it even a battle if it doesn't exist like somewhere else? It's pretty, everyone in America is so fucking worried about things that might not exist.
The pharmaceutical company has such a stronghold on everything. There's money in it. There's money in people being preoccupied with other things than just living.
Yeah, but
thinking that they were weak and then becoming weak.
But I'm also kind of obsessed with the way that like countries dabble with each other's populations, creating revolt, creating unrest, creating like dissatisfaction in all these weird little ways. But the like mental health pandemic that has been going on in the States for so long, with like everybody convinced that they're sick in their head no matter how
Now
functional their bodies are.
Too.
Yeah.
But they're weak.
It's
the dogs
weak.
Are weak. The people are weak.
Yeah. And it's a choice that you forget that you have. Everybody in America seems so stressed out with all of the same problems that like you were super stressed out about. Just like, oh, like my kids this, my business this, my work this, my body this, my issues. And like, but really the issue for me was like, I'm bored and I'm nitpicking about all these little things. Maybe I'm not a good enough mom. Maybe I'm not thin enough. Maybe I'm not successful enough. Maybe I don't have enough time. Maybe I'm not rich enough. Maybe I didn't. And it's crazy how getting into a super different way of life just immediately dissolved all of these things that had been like my most important problems for the last fucking 5 years.
Yeah, we had a big detox the first few days, and I still feel like we are, especially with the kids. Saw it with the kids, you know.
Yo, you know what I just realized is something that I haven't seen here, except for with that one family that was on vacation, that I used to get every time I left the house with the kids, is always like the parents, like from parent to another, you're like, oh, you know, you're like saying how you doing to another parent, and they're like, oh, you know, kids had a sleepover, so like not fun, just like trying to get through the day, right? Like this like kind of bullshit camaraderie between parents where you're like, isn't this so hard? Yeah, this is so hard. Isn't this so terrible? Like, yeah, this is so terrible. And
stories.
Here, people don't really make comments about having kids at all. It's just like, there's our family.
You see 3 kids on a motorcycle.
Yeah. And you see parents with like fucking 6 kids and nobody's complaining about the kids. And something that I really noticed a lot is the dads with the kids too. I see a lot of dads with their kids, putting their kids down for naps on like, you know, the side of the road, like putting a lot of dads with the kids, a lot of dads with the kids. So what I might entertain our watchers, or might ask our watchers to entertain the thought of, is like, what if someone told you that all of your problems weren't real and that they were like specifically first world problems? I think if somebody told me that when I was living in New York, I might be like, yeah, you know, but I live in a first world, so.
Say fuck off.
Yeah, I would say I might have a laugh about it, but I'd be like, I live in a
Literally
first
thought
world,
that
so.
2 weeks ago. I mean, I remember right before we left, I said something like that. We're talking about something. I was like, none of this shit matters. But it still sort of did at the time.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, is like,
You can't really comprehend it until you take yourself out.
yeah, because I'd be like, yeah, I'm sure over in Costa Rica, where you're living like pura vida, like this shit doesn't matter, but I'm in New York stressing the fuck out.
Yeah.
But I couldn't comprehend it. But now I get it. And I would have probably been pretty offended if someone told me that none of my problems were real, and I wouldn't know how to not make a comparison to be like, yeah, I don't have anything to complain about. It's not saying that like compare yourself to people in other places, you should be grateful for what you have. I'm not saying that whatsoever. What I'm saying is that all of the things that are stressing you out on a day-to-day basis are probably just your own guilt and your own nitpicking, and you're doing a really great job and you have a lot. You just can't see it because everyone around you is telling you that it's normal to be stressed out about the same things. It's not that you're not grateful. It's not that you need to, you know, stop and smell the roses more. It's just that you're on a conveyor belt with millions of other people that are all doing the same thing.
Everybody's comparing themselves to everybody, and everybody's trying to fit into some invisible mold as well.
But everyone has a wild soul.
Yeah, we're all indigenous people. We all come from indigenous people.
So with that, that's what we learned these last couple of weeks. YouTube turns the comments off on all of the videos that have kids in it, which I'm not shaking my fist at the computer screen about, because I'm slowly starting to learn that these internet companies sometimes know a little bit more about the internet. But we want to know what you thought of this episode. We want to know what you think of our parenting. Actually, we don't, because we don't care. But if you enjoyed this, drop us an email, magic@mommyonami.com, and we'll see you for next episode. Thank you.
Adios.
I love you.
Te amo.
Te amor.
Te amo.
Te amo. Yeah, beautiful.